Yeah, all
But you
right.
stop dancing as soon as I hit the
Woo!
button.
The magic.
There you go. Got to get it going.
Gotta
Get
get it
Sean all
going.
pumped up. Welcome to Business Technicalities and our live session with a couple PitchIT contestants. And
Yes.
this is fun. We're going to be talking to them about, the exciting worlds of MDM and compliance.
Because they're right. You know, compliance. I mean, like for some reason, accounting comes into play or something. Like I think of like CPAs. I feel like those people that follow rules are very linear.
It's the ever so important bureaucracy, and I say ever so important because there is a need for it. It's Tim is really good at it. He's someone I actually know personally, so we're gonna pick on him a little bit about it because I've already got a
Yes.
rapport going. So
Nice. Yeah, no, I think it's to be a good session. I think the fact is compliance has become a very hot topic,
yeah,
especially in these last couple, probably last year has been this huge surge of compliance vendors that have really promoted that have got much stronger because I feel like it was wild, wild west forever.
yeah. And then use the MDM component. We'll be talking about that too. But
Mhm.
before we get too deep into this, yes, this is Pitch It. This is essentially a Shark Tank by ConnectWise. These contestants have gone through quite a bit. So every time we do these, where they've gone through probably another whole module, isn't it like one module a week they go through?
Yes, every
Yeah.
single week there's a workshop just about we're on week like 12.
Yeah.
So
And and ConnectWise is basically honing their skills, making sure their products are ready for market and they can compete together. So even if they don't win, they still all go through this fun competition building exercise, which I think is really cool. And part of it is making sure they're good in front of a camera. That's where me and Sean try to trip them up a little bit, have some fun, get them to laugh,
that's
talk about
exactly
them, not just the
yes.
product today. We talk about the industries, kind of what their currency is, what motivates them and brings them here. But nonetheless, the links down below for Pitch It and information about that. And let's bring our guests on.
Absolutely. And before we even bring it on, we'll bring this guy. You said get them talking about themselves.
Oh,
He doesn't struggle one bit with talking about himself.
okay.
So he's I can see him in the green room already laughing because he already knows who he is. We'll just bring Tim on now so he can suck up the oxygen. Hi, Tim.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome from COVID Central. Yes, it is.
Yes.
It's. Bear with me. I'm not as witty as I am because this COVID is really kicking my fanny yesterday and today. So, but hi, welcome to the wonderful world of compliance.
Yes.
I'm already excited, already stoked. Yeah, you're not going to make it. I'm down there. I'm for everybody that doesn't know. Obviously, I'm not my typical place.
You're at Chicago.
I'm in the Sheridan Grand. That has a bunch of windows, all not where the desk is. So I'm like sitting catty corner, trying to have at least somewhat decent lighting, trying to look like I'm on a witness protection program.
Need to close the bathroom doors behind you too while you're at it.
That's the bathroom door right here. I closed that. That's the hallway.
Right. Must be the hallway.
That's the hallway. What else am I gonna do? It's like, yeah, that's all. Anyway, so unfortunately, Tim, you can't make it here. So sorry, dude.
I know. I was very bummed. Not only did I wake up with COVID yesterday morning, but one of my two crowns fell out. So it's like, all right, this is.
So you can't go to the dentist either.
I know. I couldn't go to the dentist. I'm like, this is just not fun. So, anyways, I get to be here live with Sean and Tom and soon to be. This is really fun. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. And now, not to give you all the FaceTime, we're going to bring in Paul too. What's up, Paul? How are you, sir?
Hey, how are you? Thank you for having me. I'm here. Believe me, I'm on the West Coast. Our offices are in Ohio, but I happen to be out in the West Coast, and we actually got a tad bit of rain this morning, which we are celebrating. So we are in a very dry spell these days.
That's funny. We don't celebrate that in our area. We don't need to do the rain dance at all.
No,
we do. We do. I mean, if you read the between the fires and Lake Mead and all of that.
Oh yeah,
it's pretty getting pretty ugly out here.
Every year, I feel like every year it's like that.
It gets worse and worse every year. Southern Cal is drying up and running out of water. It's sad because it's a beautiful state to live in. But,
right.
The water issue has really become a really severe point for this.
So where in Ohio are the offices?
Right outside of Youngstown and Boardman.
I live in Pittsburgh, so I'm very familiar with
that. Yeah, either flying to Pittsburgh or flying to Cleveland, drive down. But yeah, it's a great place. We got there. We had offices at one time out here and out there, but it was more cost effective to keep them in Ohio.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. It is. And
Great
Boardman is a
people.
nice area.
Hey,
Yeah.
and I love the state of Ohio from a business perspective. So much friendlier than California. I hate to say it. I've lived here for 35 years, but from a business standpoint, Ohio is a great place to have a business, small business, at least a small business. Don't know about a huge business, but a small business, very friendly.
I can't agree more. I totally agree with that. Honestly, it is. And actually where you are in Boardman and stuff is actually a nice area too. So
It is Canfield. Well, it's Canfield, Boardman.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a lot nicer than people would think. It's
Well, Canfield's a NFL Hall of Fame.
yeah. So
it is interesting how many tech companies are out. Either they're in the Florida, Central Florida, or Ohio. It's that years ago there used to be this thing called the East Coast Silicon Valley here, going from Portland, Maine down to Boston is the new East Coast Silicon Valley. But now I feel like it's all over the country. So
yeah, well, you got Texas and Austin, Texas, man. They're really pushing hard these days.
Well, they pushed early on, even in the first place when the first exodus happened from California,
right?
Because it was easier to do business down there. And Texas was struggling. They were like, hey, we only have these oil fields. That was our big thing. And when that started struggling a little bit, they still needed tech. So that became like Silicon Valley 2 for a while. And then prices went up and then they kind of backed off and then they became competitive again, it seemed like. So yeah, I watched that all happen.
Raleigh, North Carolina for a while there was supposed to be the big tech. Remember that?
Oh yeah. Oh, they did. They've done well. I actually worked with a company out of Raleigh. Well, actually out of Cary. So I spent some time down there, and it is in Pittsburgh similar though. Actually in Pittsburgh, Cleveland, all these cities that are the tier 2 cities, I guess you'd say, because when you think of the big cities, I'm thinking New York, LA, Chicago, stuff like that. Then Philly, whatever. But then you go to that next level, and that's when you're hitting Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Austin, cities like that. They seem to all have a very good foothold on the tech space.
Well, hey, people are looking for places to live where they can afford, where they can make a decent salary and then live a decent life instead of making a high salary and still feeling like you're in poverty.
Right. Yes, exactly. So let's talk about you guys a little bit here. For everybody watching here, again, you guys are PitchIT contestants. I know, right? Tim he cried like a baby when he found out. It was exciting.
No, I didn't. Sort of. According to well,
it was cries of glee. So
yes,
it was really kind of interesting how it happened because Sean and I had already had a pre-scheduled session just to talk about stuff and life in general and compliance and so on and so forth. Lo and behold, it was literally hours before the PitchIT contestants were announced, and I mean, I didn't know anything, obviously, and
I did. I knew, and I couldn't say anything. So I was like, "Yeah, we'll find out today, I guess." I'm like, I had to be so passive, and I had to lie to Tim.
It's not the first time. I'm sure it won't be the last.
Well, I only do it to make you feel better, Tim.
Perfect.
Protecting you. Okay, so question I like to ask is what made you guys join? And we'll start with you, Paul. What made you sign up for PitchIT?
We wanted to get more visibility with the ConnectWise group. We actually did the integration. In fact, I don't sound like a commercial, but there are a variety of MDM players out there, and MDM, let me say, mobile device management, right? But none of them, as we did research, really have integrated into any of the PSAs or RMMs. So we picked ConnectWise Manage, and we started to get some real interest in that, and it became a really powerful story to say, hey, we're the only vendor out there that's taken the time, the energy to integrate into Manage, and that started to generate interest. So I figured, okay, let's apply for the PitchIT. We could all use, I think one of the things that all 17 of us have in common is everybody could use the money and everybody could use the exposure into that massive ConnectWise world. What's interesting is that our message is well understood, but what we seem to be running into, and I think, Tom and Sean, you'll probably find this funny, is the nature of the MSP beast, okay, of what it's like to try to get them to do something new.
Oh, yes. Oh,
what
yes.
what it take, those OML sessions, right, where we talked about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yep.
All right. We're seeing that we've got MSPs that actually want to do this, want to get involved, but the nature of the way they run their business, the way their business is, they're like as slow as a turtle, right? Maybe slower than a turtle, maybe like a slug. And you have to have a lot of patience. And the problem with most of our businesses, the patience, corresponds to money, right? You need to have the money, the financial stability of your business to get to that next point.
Right. Well, that's so. I think we can all collectively agree that some MSPs are very challenged as far as progression. They've always done it this way. They have a pretty good nest egg. They're making money off it, no problem, right? And so why change it? Plus, every time they also run the fear of anytime they add something new on, they have to teach their clients or their customers about it, which always causes another disturbance that they don't want to take part of also, right? Just that's one more thing for them, their customer to mess up. And that's how they see things, right?
Right. We're running into the issue that it's kind of interesting is they're so damn busy that I think they're trying to balance their workload with, personnel costs, right? And try to keep that in balance. So they're not overly hiring. And so when you want to introduce a new product into them, they've got to take somebody to take the time to go through the training, right? And I got to tell you, many times we don't want the owner to go through the training. We want one of their folks to do it because the owner can be great to deal with and sometimes can be a nightmare to deal with.
Absolutely.
Well, you make a couple of good points, right? Making sure that you have the right person in the conversation, right? So as a former MSP or an existing MSP owner, like I don't need to be involved in the deployment of SentinelOne. I just need to know if it's going to be the right fit for our client and let our techs go through the onboarding process of any tool for that matter, right? So it's getting the right people at the table at the right time.
And Tim, it really, we deal with MSPs of all sizes, right? There could be 3, 4 people up to 54 people. And man, when you get down to that lower end, you're sometimes stuck with the owner when he doesn't have anybody else. He's got the rest of the guys are out there, paying the monthly doing the monthly service work,
Absolutely. So that's a good question then too, because both you guys and Tim, I want to talk about your stuff as well, but both from what I can tell, both of you guys give the ability to be somewhat to help them become scalable to some degree, making things easier because scalability is determined by processes and people and technology, right? We know that. And so you have to fill in the void with something first to help you get to the next level, whatever it is. So to me, both offerings make that possible because you're able to manage a lot on less.
Right. You make some really good points there about scalability, right? So, MSPs are really great at documenting. Tom, you do this, right? Documenting like how to onboard people, how to offboard people. You look at our friends over at Roost, automating some of that stuff, right? Putting in these processes along with the people and then using the tech to manage that, right? So at Compliance Risk, we recognized that was a challenge when it came to policy management, right? Go grab a Word document and call it done. No, we're so good at processes and documenting our stuff, but we're really bad at policy, specifically when it comes in alignment, like with cyber liability insurance, asking for incident response plans. Do you have a process to manage that policy? No, I grab a Word document, copy paste, and call it done. Well, things like what Paul and I are doing in the industry is to help bring some of that automation into this to make those MSPs more scalable, right? I just want to kind of back up to what Paul said before, right? us as vendors, right? One of the key things that we're missing in the industry is the onboarding process of an MSP. Some are getting far better at it, right? I look at our friends over at Finn, right? And they throw their stuff out there all the time on YouTube. Like, this is how you onboard a client, right? So for us as vendors, trying to relieve that barrier to entry for the MSPs, and then gaining their operational efficiencies along the way so that they have yet a strategic business partner with the business, but a streamlined process to make it profitable in the long run.
Tim, to follow up with what you're saying, we basically, took a look at, what differentiates us from other folks out there that are selling MDM solutions. And I think the thing that we decided to specialize on is we were going to be the best solution for an MSP. And what we do is we white glove every one of those guys to a degree, which I hope that we can continue doing over time. But I got to tell you something, we make a huge investment into the MSP. And most of the other vendors out there just want to sell them licenses, get them going and all that. And that doesn't work.
It doesn't.
Okay. I've had MSPs tell us that our support and our integration at ConnectWise Manage, are the two things that they valued the most. Our product functionality is very similar. Most MDM solutions kind of do the same thing.
Right.
Okay. And that is, that's not good. That's not what it's all about, selling the MSPs.
Exactly.
MSPs want to know you're going to be there when they call, when you email, get them out of a mess, sometimes shadow, sales, support, whatever the hell they need, do it for them.
I like what you said real quick here. I like something you said. Because I was going to ask you the question. You answered it, Paul. So you messed up my chance to ask a question. Because how many vendors do you hear say we're here to provide the best? We want to be the best damn product there is, right? That's what they say. But then the question is, what is the product? The product to me is all encompassing. It is. I sat down with Carolyn April from CompTIA. She's actually doing her annual report here, and she interviewed me on partner experience. We discussed that at length. And to me, the first product, you already created a product. You already knew you were creating as MDM, or you created your compliance product, right? We know that part. But the next level of the product is the experience.
Yeah, and so Sean, we actually did it sort of backwards in that analogy, right? So year plus two ago, I started consulting MSPs on compliance. It kind of got unwieldy, unmanageable. So we took a completely different approach by building a compliance-based peer group, working directly with the MSPs, teaching them to fish, right? And it's escalated from that, from taking the knowledge in my team's brain and teaching those MSPs to the next level, which was, hey, this is great. We're learning a lot. Can you do it for us? Sure. Compliance as a service. Here's how it fits. Here's how you can scale that in your business. This is great, Tim. What's the next thing? The next thing is Polygon, right? Taking that policy management piece. So we kind of did it backwards, Sean. We started with supporting the MSPs one-on-one, half hour here, then to peer group, all the way through now our product.
I like that. I mean, I don't think there's any bad way to do it as long as you do it, right? And and actually, Tom is the MSP on this call. So Tom, how do you choose a vendor?
I think a couple of things you guys both touched on is when you're catering to the MSP market, it's not just white gloving, it's also what you're white gloving versus an internal IT team. Because the internal IT team, you just got to get them convinced that your solution is the right solution. Convincing MSP is twofold. Your solution has to be the right solution. How do we sell your solution? I'm the MSP. I got to ask that question. How do I integrate it into my sales process? How do I integrate it into the pitch I have sitting in front of the client? How do I convince the client that it's part of what they need to do? Obviously, the government's kind of forcing the hand in risk compliance, but your pitch is a little different because you're like, well, instead of just a collection of Word documents that no one will ever update or remember where they put, you put a structure into it. But with the mobile device management too, we need to get it done because we have a checkbox. We have to manage all these mobile devices. How does that integrate into our sales process? And I think that's where both of your experiences come in from being on the MSP side of the house, gives you a better understanding of that versus MDM vendors who are like, what's multi-tenancy? Like they don't.
Exactly. And to Paul's product, right? I'm sitting here with 3 mobile devices on my desk for 3 different solutions that I have to deal with, right? That becomes a nightmare to manage, right? And looking at like a solution like Paul's, want to be the best MDM, like that white glove piece. I've tried a whole bunch of other MDM tools as an MSP. Yeah. I mean, buy my license and then I'm just another number, right? And so that doesn't work in the MSP space, right? To Tom's point, right? Being able to not only just answer the question, can you help me with this need, but also can you help me sell that need to my clients, right? And so, while we want to be that white glove service to the MSP, it's really a strategic partnership of the 3-legged stool, right? So let's put it in this sense. Tom is the MSP, Paul is the MDM tool, and Tim as the compliance, putting that 3-legged stool together, right? That stool isn't going to stand if you take one of the legs out. Exactly. How can the 3 of us work together to then better secure, better protect, and better align our clients or the MSP's clients?
Right. So one of the things, Tim, that we run into or push is this whole thing with BYOD, bring your own device. People, MSPs and their customers for years thought, well, hey, I don't want to mess with personally owned devices. And the problem is the lack of education. Personally owned devices cause an entire problem of their own. And what we've been doing the last year or two, educating them. Some of the MSPs get it. Others need to, be educated. But this compliance issue with mobile, right? I'm with you all the way.
Yeah.
Whether it be, HIPAA, FINRA, any environment. Now the governments are asking for compliance.
Really why I have 3 devices.
Subcontractors and all that. Absolutely. It is, and a lot of insurance companies now are requiring small businesses to prove they're doing something on the mobile side, right? Yep. Not forget the desktop and all that, but now they're asking about what are you doing for mobile, and what are you doing for people that use their own personal devices at work, and so that's
what are we doing?
Solving it one way and I'm coming in and solving it another way.
Yeah. Do you find yourself educating people on that? Okay, so let's go back to that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've all been around long enough to see the era of when you would get companies start buying phones for people, right? And they had their own cell phones, and then you saw people try to dabble in the dual SIM in their phones, right? And all these different things, but the reality
is manage BlackBerry Enterprise.
Everybody was there, right? And so how do you? And there's a stigma to people bringing their personal phones, although the workforce is remote, so it is tablets, it is their smartphones that's what they're using, and that's the thing. So how do we? So do you help educate on that? How do you guys work with your partners? Because we know MSPs sometimes don't want to have the conversations or uncomfortable or just don't know about it. How do you do this? Do you educate them on that and educate the client too, or what?
It's a combination. For us, it's a combination. We've got some MSPs or their customers are going to them. Some MSPs are kind of going out. What happens is that when they get a customer or when they get an opportunity, then they go back and say, okay, now what product am I going to use? Right. And then that's where they go out, more on the ConnectWise side. They'll go out to the marketplace and see our tile on the marketplace, and then come back. And they'll say, oh, well, there are a couple MDM vendors out there. What differentiates you? And I said, well, which ones integrate into manage? that pretty much eliminates.
You win.
People, they're not truthful. There was a big vendor out there that works with Continuum, that claimed that they did this, that, and the other. And I asked the MSPs, to the few that looked at it, what, can you find any documentation on the integration? And it's like, no, but they said they did. And I said, well, let me know when they do, when you find it. Okay. Meanwhile, let me show you a real one that really works with Manage.
Right. No, that's fair. And so, okay, so you guys now we're week 12 into this competition. How do you guys feel so far about your chances?
So
Tim,
I came into this as an opportunity to grow and to learn, right?
Yep.
And truth be told, I have no expectation of being up on stage at ConnectWise at IT Nation Connect in November. But then again, the other side of my brain is like, of course I'm going to be up there because I am the only compliance solution other than one other thing in the marketplace. Why wouldn't I be up there? So I struggle with that, like imposter day after day. But to be honest, the insight that I've gained into the market, the insight that I've kind of built around all these learning sessions, like, let's be honest, like from idea to market in 5 months or less with ConnectWise behind me and then ConnectWise ahead of me going forward. Like, it has been an amazing experience for myself, at least from the learning perspective. Like, now I know who my market is. Now I know how to build a pitch deck to a potential investor. Now I know how to, like, these things I just didn't have in my quiver 6 months ago. And so it's just been really amazing along the way. And for those that look like next year, there'll be another PitchIT. And if I'm not up on stage, you bet your ass I'll be on there next year too.
That's exactly it too.
The money is great. Yes, don't get me wrong. But the experience of 16 weeks worth of training, like for free, like you can't. Yeah, and
that's in a really important aspect to think about is all the different modules they put you through, as I kind of alluded to at the very beginning. They really, because you're coming from the MSP going to the vendor side, you have a good idea of what, at least what from your perspective as an MSP, the market needs. You've seen the gap. That's what made you create the product. But there's still some fine tuning that I think the ConnectWise PitchIT program really helps you with.
Mm-hmm.
I think anything they can share about the MSP, the size of the market, the types of different, OML levels, things like that, have been very helpful. There's nowhere to find that information. I mean, seriously, the things that we're getting in PitchIT are almost impossible to find out there unless you have a program like this. I think it's a unique program. It's a great idea. And we're happy to be, this inaugural group that's going through it, because there are some things that I think could be improved. One thing that I think a lot of the group was looking for was maybe some more visibility on funding.
Yeah.
To me, the session on on the M&A and all that was great, maybe for a little later stage. But I think really, I hate to, get straight to the point, but every one of us could use, funding partners, whether it's private money or a VC or small VC or whatever, and some help doing that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I really
just borrow it from Sean or Keith, right? Because they're both over here chatting in chat messages over here, right? Like we can just borrow it from them.
I've talked to VC. We've talked to VCs and all that. I mean, part of the problem is that a lot of these folks don't realize what it's like starting a business focused on MSPs. It's not. You're not going to be a unicorn overnight in this business. This is a seed growing, opportunity. So you need investors that share your vision, but are willing to, take the time, give you the time.
I think you're seeing a lot more of that now than you were in the past, especially with this cloud transformation that is inevitable. It's taking place. That this whole digitalization conversation we talk about all the time, and especially, I mean, Paul, you're doing mobile device management. It's like that's what this is. This is about, right? And you're starting to see a lot more investors become more involved because there's some. I mean, ConnectWise, for instance, look at us. I mean, Tom Robb, they're not a small company. They're not small at all. They have a huge portfolio. So when you start having companies like that getting involved, and then which happened with Dado and Kaseya, right? Again, you're
Right.
seeing this happen. It makes people pay attention. Back in the day, it was a very different industry. It was a different everything.
Yeah.
People understand that the way to the future, regardless, is remote work, cloud-based everything. So how do you get there? Who are the experts in the field? You know, so yeah, it is. Well, the good thing I'm glad you're plugging yourself looking for funding while we're doing this. So anybody's interested, Paul's interested in funding.
I think all 17 were at one point or another. I kept hearing those questions. Could you get a little bit more specific on investors? Came out in some of those sessions, and we kind of went right over it. But I really think a session on that next year would be really well appreciated by everybody.
Absolutely.
We can in alignment with that.
Noted.
One of the things that we talked about last week that they actually added another session was building your pitch deck, right? Which I think is going to be very important, right? So I know you're just kind of bantering back and forth here, but you know, having that pitch deck, but twofold, right? One, to our MSP partners that we want to work with and how our product separates us from the others, but two, our investment constituents, right? Like being able to pitch that is two totally different vernaculars and two totally different things to be able to discuss, right? I had an opportunity to practice my pitch deck with a few people, and you know, I've learned a lot of really good insight on that. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to make this all about money, but if you feel like giving us money, go ahead. But back to the conversation of
it won't hurt
of money. Back to the question of money.
PitchIT has been a really great opportunity for me to grow professionally in something that I hadn't even considered or I hadn't even looked at until I got in and was like, oh my gosh, I know what OML is. Like, we kind of get that. We know what the modes assessment is, but to be able to tie that back and look at what's there, 15 or 20 some odd thousand MSPs in ConnectWise right now, and look at like a bulk of them are the mature ones that our product, my product, Polygon, will tie right into.
Yeah.
They're just missing the piece that I've automated.
Which is, okay, so let's talk about the importance of that, right? So one thing we went through, like you said, you got to figure out we talk about product market fit all the time. So, and Tom being the king of this, because he is the Swiss Army knife of MSPs with products and services and the way he does things, you know? So how important, Tom, is it for product market fit in the first place to start with?
Oh yeah. Because Sean kind of alluded to him being a little bit of an outsider, because I look at open source products a lot, and then, you know, we use them, but that's even how we start looking at them, is understanding how they fit, what components they do, and how they would solve the problems in a way that we need them to. I think that's really, it's kind of where I start. But I think as an MSP, go back to something you said, Tim. I think as an MSP, you said there's two different pitch decks, but you look at a good mature, if you look at a really mature MSP, one of the things that they have a question, it's the same question I ask because I come from the open source community a lot, is what's the business model around this product? And I say that because if you have a company that's in startup mode, but they're also behind the scenes floating on fumes because they haven't really got good funding, how much commitment do I want to put with this new startup company, investing my time selling the product? Because I get companies reaching out to me just because of my YouTube channel. Hey, we're building a new MSP product. And I'm like, you started last week, guys. Cool. I'm not ready to sign with you and pitch you and install it on, you know, a few thousand endpoints just yet.
Wait a minute. Are you talking about me?
Yeah. You know, this Tim guy hit me up last week. But I think it's important though that, because I do ask what's your business model look like. I have had that conversation, unless I already know the answer because of the company being long time and mature and things like that. But whenever there's a newer product, I think that's an important question more MSPs should be thinking about, should be asking of the vendor themselves. Cybersecurity being at the forefront. I mean, with incidents related to the MSP industry, MSPs being the target that they are, but so are the vendors that we buy from are the, you know, same target. So we always have to think about their operational maturity, not just funding and everything else. So it's kind of a big picture thing. That's why I think back to what you said about the pitch deck. Yeah, you're going to tune it a little to the MSP, to the vendor, but actually there's a smart MSP kind of needs to see a well-rounded picture of what your company looks like.
Okay. Good points.
You know, I think for a startup, one of the challenges is if you see what, if you listen to some of the sessions, pricing, right? I mean, the product has got to be priced so that the MSP can make some margin on it, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
wrap that margin up with service revenue as well, right? So they need to be able to make a living. If the product is too expensive, how are they going to pass that on? We hear that all the time, that the cost of all these different tools is starting to really have a real big problem with their billing, and maybe what their customer can afford. And so we're trying to balance, our uh, margin, our revenue, with helping them make theirs. And so, it's an exercise.
But I do think that there is Tom, are you saying that there's one pitch deck? Because I think there should be two different pitch decks,
Yeah.
one
I
for
think
investors and one for partners. But I agree with what you're saying as far as
yeah.
how do you establish that you're a consistent company that's going to be around tomorrow before you make any kind of investments and start to run out with that, right? And so
That's the point I wanted to make. It's not that they need to be the same, because the investors are not going to care about the details of minutia or what multi-tenancy even means. That's not what the investors, they want to know, how is your product going to move forward? How can we get a return on our investment? But from an MSP standpoint, making sure that the company has enough runway, has a plan, a sustainability plan. And when it comes to pricing too, I think about this occasionally of, are they charging enough? Is this going to be a sustainable model for that vendor? Because some vendors try to do the land grab. I'm going to just make it, it's the same problem we see in the MSP market. I'm going to start an MSP. What's your plan? I'm going to do it for 1/4 of the price of everybody else. Oh boy.
Right.
And that's not,
yeah, that's the question you have to ask then, right? Okay, if they're doing that, we know why they're doing it, right? But now the question is, do you have funding? Is that why you're able to afford this?
right.
Because how are you sustaining? Because there is long money involved then, right? So how are you sustaining to
Well,
do this?
we've noticed that not only do we have to make the licensing aggressive enough, but we're making a huge upfront investment in training. I mean, I have to tell you something. If you think of the traditional RMM, right? Your desktop, laptop, servers, networking equipment. We're now taking this MSP and moving them into the world of mobile, iOS, Apple iOS, Google Android. It's new. It's different. Okay. In the early days when I talked to ConnectWise and we talked about how you deal with mobile and all that, mobile is like a round peg in a square hole with RMM. It's different.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know what that means? We pay a penalty. We can't leverage a lot of their experience in the RMM tool area. We got to teach them something new. And believe me, there's no throwing licenses across the table, or there's no discount. I give the thing away for free, but they can't figure it out. They need to be trained on how to use it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tom, you made a really good point about pricing, because I have struggled with this in looking at our new product going forward, right? Where's the sweet spot? What leaves room for growth? What is, an investment mindset? I've had some investors look at it and be like, you're too low. I've had others like, you're too high. Like, the pricing part as a vendor is a real big challenge, right? Keith just put in there, Kmart's out of business, but Nordstrom's showing a profit, right? So there's that balance,
there
right?
you go.
Yeah.
And the reason is that because Nordstrom has great service. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
True.
the difference. Okay.
Well, and they're not afraid to price accordingly, right?
Exactly.
So again, if ever there's advice you should give people starting a business, whether it's an MSP or a delicatessen, deli, I don't care, take your pick. Obviously there's a certain standard you must uphold, right? We know that in this area, and it's based off where you live or whatever, maybe, right? But again, if you're in Boston, you're paying this much. This is the average price. Okay, everybody goes with the good, better, best, right? Models. They talk about that. So and that's the fine line too. And Tom is probably the biggest culprit of it, because he doesn't price normal. He does a lot of project work. And we had this conversation a million times about this. On the vendor side, you have to figure out a way to be, when you come to pricing, you can't be consultative anymore, because you can't scale with MSPs. You have to publicly display prices. People, it's expected now. They expect to be able to go to your site and see this. So now, how do you determine what that price is worth? What's the value of your product? What's the value of your time? What's the value for them using your product? And those are all things that you have to quantify somehow and look at the industry. And how difficult is it when the industry is brand new?
You know, Sean, one of the things that happens for us is we do some replacement. I mean, MSP maybe picked somebody and after a while realized, getting too expensive, there's no support, missing some functionality. But I would say half of the MSPs we've signed up, we've actually replaced some products in there uh, by, not necessarily being the first, but coming in knowing what they're going through. And the support one is typically the big ticket. Big ticket is support, lack of support.
Well, that's okay. So so let's talk about support. Let's talk about how vendors should provide support. Tom, how do you like vendors that provide support for you? How do you like to communicate with them?
Oh, email whenever possible.
Well, okay. So what about Discord channels?
Those can be helpful too.
Yep.
When they take the time to interact more with the community. Obviously, for consolidation reasons, they need to have clear and concise channels. They just can't be everywhere at once. But there are group channels where you can interact with the vendors and get a hold of them. As the companies get larger, I think it's almost their duty to look. You're going to have to probably address some things in a Reddit post here and there. You may not love Reddit, but there's a lot of people over on there, and there's some subreddits dedicated to the MSP community, Reddit R MSP specifically, and it should be worth noting that you can address some things in there. But I understand from a consolidation of communication, you want tickets opened in your ticket system, so you have a chain that you can follow, not trying to have someone refresh and check all these different spots all the time for stuff.
Are you talking about documented, repeatable processes?
And on cue, Ray. Oh, plus one for Ray. Thanks, Ray. Thanks, Ray.
Yep.
So go ahead, Tim. What were you saying? I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, Tom, are you talking about documented, repeatable processes? There's an app for that.
There's an app for that. There we go. Well, and as long as they've outlined it, the biggest thing is a lot of the products, if they should always be, and I look a lot at the product, like how intuitive is and easy to use is it? How obvious or not obvious are things? And is the vendor open to suggestion? Most any of the vendors we've worked with over time, I frequently climb all the way up and I've been on the advisory board for more than one of them for some of these reasons, and to just help them make sure this is the workflow, this is where I expected to click, this is where something should be. But I love when I run into, and come back to the open source community, some of the tools we use, when they're so intuitive, I almost don't need to RTFM at all. I'm like, oh, I just figured this out. This is great. The workflow makes a lot of sense. So there's obviously that aspect of it. But if for some reason it doesn't, or you've decided to name things in kind of an obtuse way, well, please have good documentation. Please have it public facing so it's not hard to get to. If not, you're going to ramp up your support tickets. I think, the people building the product almost need to have those outside study groups come in on there, because that's really what pushes down the support requests that you have. So many of the support requests are just obvious things that you're like, well, all you guys got to do is click 7 menus deep and it's there.
So lots of conversations with my development team on user stories. What is this user story through this piece of the process, and making sure that it's, as you said, intuitive to the end user, and then have the documentation to back it up. Yeah, I've been in way too many user story conversations in the last couple of weeks that it makes total sense about making sure, like, it needs to be an easy button without being the easy button.
Yeah.
What we try to do is we do kind of like templates. Customer wants to move off of one platform to another. We actually show them how to do it. Okay. I'm really big on, you can't assume that they got it. Okay. We write instructions for dummies. It works because they make less mistakes that way.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing that we have to deal with is changes from Google, Android, iOS, Apple that aren't documented. And they pop up, right?
That's odd. No way.
Yeah, right. And so the problem is sometimes we just had one come up where getting a cert for Apple, they changed the suffix of the file. They didn't tell anybody that. So when some of our customers decided to renew their license, their certificate, It didn't work. And so all of a sudden we said, how could it not work? It just worked. It's like, where did this happen? And immediately, we got to funnel that into development, and we need to turn that kind of stuff around fast, or know how to patch it, or and so there's no dawdling, because you've got all these people in real time with these devices, and the only way they can communicate is with that certain place. And if that cert's not there or not renewed, they stop communicating. Okay. So yeah, it can go from, a wonderful environment to hell in a very short period of time. So I think going back to that support, as Tim says, product support, uh, you know, uh, support, and getting them to learn how to use the platform, all of that. You can't invest any less money in that, because it does pay back. They do appreciate it. Okay, they really do. They'll compliment you, saying, "Hey, you're one of the best vendors I have." I've had several MSPs tell us that we are the best vendor they've ever had as far as support, and they deal with some really big companies. But again, it's understanding what level we need to work at to keep them happy, because their loyalty in the long run is phenomenal.
I would agree. So, and Tim said something before about the easy button without the easy button, right? And again, back to the partner experience. The goal is to, like, even when I worked with Ray over at OIT, one of the big focuses was how do we get partners to understand exactly what's going on, how to get them to the promised land quickly, right? How to get them in production, how to get them to understand how to work with each other,
Right.
work with you, and try to take away and mitigate as many things as possible that could go wrong. All the stupid stuff. Again, the reason why Tier 1 help desk support exists is for I forgot my password, right? And I'm the king of that, so I know. And so you have to do like a 5-year-old almost. So I would be curious. Probably a good thing to do a study on is what percentage are people investing in the total experience as opposed to their actual product that they're actually having MSP sell or use. Because I had really like, what is that percentage of investment between the two?
Yeah.
Well, you see, that's what I was talking about before. Like, that's where I started.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah, but
started.
now 5 years from now, when you're mature, where does it take you to?
Yeah,
Right?
that's a great question.
Where are you? Where are you then? Like because I feel like you're always going to be on a plan of, you're going to be on a rotation of sorts. Like, okay, we have updates we have to do, right? Like in
Right.
Paul's world,
What is our infinite game?
right there. I look at you with the plug on Infinite Game too. Exactly. Like right now, when we're talking about this, we'll use Paul as an example. All of a sudden there's these big releases that come out from iOS and from Android and stuff. So he knows he has to allocate more time and effort into that right now. So that's the investment. But then all of a sudden there's a dead time in that. So he has to allocate more time into the experience and enhancement of a partner portal or whatever it may be, right? Whatever he's set on. So I'm curious if you looked at like a 3 to 5 year like investment strategy, and at the end, where would you have the percentages? It's not going to be 50-50, I don't think, but it could be, depending on, people.
Yeah, there's a percentage of our development that's going to be allocated to changes that are beyond our control, right?
Yeah.
From Apple, from Android. But I got to tell you, in between that, we like to, enhance our integration into the ConnectWise product. Okay, not just manage. We like Screen Connect. There are a couple other products that we could integrate with, and then just new features, make it easier. We are sensing a set of requirements that are very specific to the MSP world. They like to see information, whether it be reporting or graphics or whatever, for them, very different than an end user. We've sold end user, now we sell MSP, but the way they like to see the information, what they kind of information they need, and integration, I think continues. We'll be doing that for a long time, John,
Yep.
and making the product better. I mean, we get great ideas from every once in a while. An MSP will suggest something. It's like, oh wow, that's a hell of an idea. Let me get it on the other list of 85 other things that are above it. But at some point, when we start hearing that more and more and more, guess what? That thing works its way right up, right up the GitHub or whatever the list, and gets to the top.
Yeah. So in addition to the customer experience for the product, right? So we always talk about people, process, technology, right? So we try to take a people first approach. trying to work with those MSPs to understand what their pain points are, right? Because we've been doing this for about 1.5 years now in the compliance space. I'm learning a lot about what those pain points are. Taking that and applying it to a process and then a tool to help fill that process, right? And so, you know, when you ask where are we going, 60-40, 80-20, like,
right,
we want to be the strategic business partner to that MSP and to their client in all things compliance. Start with this and then grow about, like, sure, we're going to start with a few policies, 15 or 20, but the idea beyond that is tying in with manage, tying in with security awareness training partners, tying in with the places where the MSP already is and meet them where they are and the tools that they're already used to using. Like, yeah, we're going to make a really great product to manage policy process, but we want to make sure that we are meeting them where they are. Not everybody's on, you know, this RMM or that RMM, but we want to make sure that we're not leaving them behind by tying into where they are.
Well, do you think
a million times 2022 is the year of the API? Well, as we start to roll out our stuff, 2023 is all about my API.
Yeah.
So don't you think with you guys both being, for the lack of the best term for you all is still emerging, you're emerging vendors for sure, you know, because we're hitting all this stuff for the first time in many cases. Don't you think you should be with amongst these communities, educating on how to get ahead of it, setting the right expectations?
Exactly.
I mean,
what I'm trying to do.
Right. That's what it's about first, because otherwise you're going to have to answer all the questions later anyway to build value. But you need to let them understand so that these MSPs know what they're dealing with and what to say, when to say, how to say it even too.
So when I win PitchIT and I get that $70,000 as the first place winner, one of my biggest campaigns will be doing a whole social education series around the need for policy management, the actual process of policy management, and why it's going to be so important to cyber insurance and everything else in the space as far as compliance is concerned. The days of copy pasta on a Word document are gone. And why building that education to the MSP is something that I'm going to really hinder on over the next 6 months to 3 years to indefinitely. Like, having a process in place for managing your policies from adoption to creation to end user training, like, those are all of the things that I want to do with that money when I win PitchIT in November.
So one thing that our main mission is really to get MSPs to realize that if they have 500, 1,000, 2,000 endpoints they're managing today,
yes,
there are that many mobile devices out there they're not.
Oh yeah, I
And
mean,
that's the most powerful statement that I can make in front of an MSP. You've got 1,000 endpoints you're managing. Why aren't you managing any of those mobile devices? And we know the answer to. Actually know the answer to that, and we talk to them about it, and they're nodding their head. But again, it's the nature of the beast to get them to take those next steps. They want to do it. They do want to do it. It's just at their pace, you know, at their timing, at their cadence. Right, Tom? I mean, right?
Yeah.
Even when you want it, it's got to fit in the program, right? It's got to fit in your program.
And the mobile device one is a hard one to wrestle with too. It was interesting that you said that none of them are integrated in ConnectWise either before yours. That's something I did not know. I didn't realize just how.
Neither did we 3 years ago. And that's why we got into this thing saying, my God, they're 20, 30, 40,000. I don't care if they're on ConnectWise or any competitive platform. None of them are integrated.
Right. That lack of integration is the
so
problem.
Absolutely
the difference.
not.
That's the difference between being in a marketplace and actually going into event as well too, and starting to establish your roots.
Exactly.
And you have to start establishing roots, and people should ask, where's your API docs? People should ask, how do you integrate? Can you show me? When you're asking for a demo, if I'm sitting down with you, okay, let me hear about your company, right? You do your pitch deck, everything. Okay, great. I like that part. Now show me how I work with you. How does this work together? Where do I click? Where's the big red button? Where's the blue button? Where the hell do I go to do these things?
This has been one of the benefits of PitchIT was in the very beginning, we did a session with the ConnectWise and the event team to understand how to build your software. So we're fortunate enough to come into the space building API first, so we consume our API first. So our Swagger docs are available from day one as we continue to pull more and more and more in. Like that was gold for me when I was looking at like, oh, I can just take my LAMP stack that I have running on my desktop and make it multi-tenant. No, I need to take an API first approach. Yeah. And I need to make sure that these APIs are consumable when and where appropriate.
We had MSP in the very early days when we were trying to ask MSPs, why haven't you jumped in? Almost every one of them, the issue was no integration. That became our mission, with to integrate. And unfortunately, by the time we had done it, COVID, we ran into COVID. So that was kind of a interesting surprise, but it's been probably the most rewarding feature in our product.
That's awesome. So we're running to the top of the hour, so we got to ask the important questions.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about your currency, right? Let's start with that. Tim, what is your currency? What makes you tick, man?
So my love language, is that what you're asking?
No. That's separate. No, you pay attention, Tim. In order documentation. What is your currency? What
motivates you?
What motivates you?
Yeah. So listen, I've been in this compliance space for longer than I'd love to admit. What drives me is taking the stuff that I've learned and my team has learned and being able to give that back to the next generation of MSPs that want to take on the compliance challenge so I don't have to and get paid along the way. My currency, educate others.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think our currency is to make the community aware that there's another way they can make some money. Okay, it's right under their nose, and they've been avoiding it, and they can get to it. And it takes a little bit of effort, but make them aware. And it's not a lot of the negatives that they run into. They're gone. Some of those are gone. So we would like to build a community of MSPs out there that are actually providing a mobile solution to their customers, making money, profitable, and growing, because we know they're not the greatest marketers themselves. So most of their growth has been organic anyway, referrals and all that. So here's another way to go back to that base and get some more money out of it by adding a service. And whether it's compliant, and we're selling a form of compliance, a form of what Tim is talking about, and being aware of your, like BYOD devices, they need to get somewhat compliant, but you need to be able to deal with all the individual BS that you run into about why people don't want to do it. And you've got to educate them on why they have to do it. They need to do it. They've got to do it to protect their company information.
Absolutely. That makes sense. Okay, so let's go to the most important question. Since Paul
Sean's favorite.
Since it is. Tell me, Paul, what's your love language, man?
Love language, quality of time.
Quality time is your love language?
Yeah, quality time. Yeah, I think quality time.
Yeah.
I've never been I have to tell you, Sean, you got me on this one. I have not. Words of affirmation. I don't know. Maybe that's it. I'm a little stumped on it. You've actually stumped me on this one.
You're welcome. We ask the hard questions on this program.
This is the hardest question in the whole session.
Gonna have a Sean session on love language. Had it to connect my picture.
I got to remember this one. This has really got me tongue-tied.
Look, tonight he's gonna wake up in the middle of the night, be like, "Damn it! I should have said."
I should have said.
I can't be ready for this love language.
I should have said nothing. Any one of them will incriminate you.
I know it will. It's such a setup. All right, Tim, what's yours?
So having gone through the 5 love languages,
of course you have.
several times for the last probably 20 plus years. I fluctuate between words of affirmation and quality time. It's within like 2 or 3 points of words of affirmation and quality time.
Tim and I are more similar than we thought.
Here we are. Everybody's so nice to each other on this. You're supposed to fight with each other, you know.
I want to tell you, it's been a pleasure meeting Tim, because all I've been able to see are his chat things on the sessions. You know,
every week
they're very interesting, they're amusing. But Tim, it's a pleasure to have this session with you, because there's a lot of synergy between what you're doing and what we're doing.
So we should certainly discuss how my API and your API can all talk together. And
I'd love to talk to you about business in general. Absolutely. Absolutely.
See that again, Tom? Another episode of the dating game.
Yes.
We're changing this from business technicalities to the dating game. I swear to God. Every week, you guys are supposed to fight with each other. You know, you're battling for the win, and you're like, I like you. I like you.
If I do have an opportunity to integrate with Paul's MDM and tie our API together, it just makes me more sticky, and then more, let's see.
Or recommend Tim's service. One of the things that we try to do is that if we see that we can co-sell or with somebody, that's one of the things that I plan to approach some of the PitchIT folks down the road, and see if we can work
right on
together.
my website.
Exactly. Instead of competing, work together and go after this MSP. We're going after the same market, so why don't we see if we can do 1 + 1 = 3? You know what I mean?
There's definitely a component of it too, because the question I couldn't even answer myself as an MSP, and I'm not afraid to say this, if you were to say how many of, for the 1-to-1 ratio you kind of said, for every user you manage, there's pretty much every user has a mobile device. How many of those users have email? How many users use their phone as a second factor of authentication? And how many are set up securely with a password on the screen?
How about this, Tom? What happens when they leave? What happens when they lose a device, right? Right. Yeah. Things like that. How do you protect their personal device from malware, right? Yeah. Little things like that. And by the way, what's the IT policy for supporting a BYOD device versus a company owned? I mean, these are all the things that, by the way, I lump all this up in education. Okay. Yeah. It's all education. That's the value we bring into this MDM world, is support, education, experience, best practices.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got to tell you, without doing that, I feel sorry for a vendor trying to sell into the MSP community. They aren't going to make it.
I would agree.
They're not going to make it.
Well, again, back to how do you get involved in the community? How do you educate in advance? How do you create awareness around this that is good for you?
We need your help, though, Sean. That's why we're in the program. We need ConnectWise to help us, and then that helps them, because the loyalty then becomes, we're integrated into Manage, and that people will want to keep using Manage because there are more and more integrations into Manage, right? That's exactly the mission of the Invent program. Okay, it's a great one, and it does work. I've seen it with the leads that we get.
Okay. I would love to have that post-mortem conversation at some point when we get through this and see how things went. Absolutely. So we're 7 minutes over. I have to actually go do my job still, Yep.
I have a job somewhere.
You can't help it. You got two of the most interesting guys in the team here. I mean,
I know. I feel like I should have a dose.
Most interesting guys in the team. What I say?
I feel like I should have a Dos Equis now. All of a sudden, the world's most interesting men.
Yes.
So, any final words, Paul?
It's been a pleasure. Love the program. Awesome. We can all use the exposure. By the way, the other pitch contestants, they're all really great people. I hate to say it. You say we're competing, but I feel like it's more like we've created our own community.
You're collaborating more than competing.
Collaborating, exactly. Yeah. And learning about what they're offering. And again, after this is all over, can we, work with some of them together and again, do that 1 + 1 = 3 with reaching out to MSPs. And by the way, thank you for having me, Tim. You've been great. You're really good today.
What about these guys?
What about the guys having you on the show?
Tom
That's
and
what
John.
else.
Well, John had asked me that question about, I don't know.
Full transparency.
Tom, it's a pleasure meeting you, and I'd love to get to know you a little bit better.
Same.
Reach out to you.
So, Paul, thank you. It's a pleasure meeting you. I look forward to whooping your ass at IT Nation Connect here in a couple of weeks. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I'm not. But full transparency, I've been fighting COVID this whole time with the brain fog. So hopefully I didn't go off rails too much.
You're doing
Sean,
good.
always a pleasure. Tom, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having us on. For those of you that have watched this, look in the chat. I put in a coupon code. If you want to come to be part of our peer group and learn and grow. Because you're here, because you're listening, because you're putting up with me, I'll give you 10% off. So,
There you
all
go.
right, last shameless plug.
You have no shame.
You know what? I expected it to come out at any moment. Thank you. You lived up to your reputation right there.
Always sell it.
Tom, get us out of this, I guess.
Yes.
Run for the hills.
Run for the hills. Thank you,
guys.
everyone, for joining us. The links to both of these people is right down in the description below. They will both be at IT Nation 2022 in November, so look for them there. One of them will be a winner. I don't know which one yet. I know which one thinks he will be the winner, but
and then there's one that hopes he's the winner.
And there's at least one of them that's hoping he's going to be the winner. But thank you all for joining. Looking forward to seeing everyone next time. And
John,
thanks.
I'll talk to you on Thursday then, right?
Yes, again on Thursday. So
We'll
thank
dig
you
in
all.
a little deeper.
Yeah, we will. And don't worry, you'll be ready with hard questions. I got other hard questions like that love language one.
I'm prepared.
Like name your kids in order, stuff like that.
The ones you know of.
Sean's just going to say no comment on that one.
Bad reception. I'm going through a tunnel.
All right.
Later,
Later, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thanks. I don't know. Take care.